Now we proceed to the main part of this inaugural session for the address by our chief guest, Dr. R. Chidambaram. To this audience, I am sure he doesn't need any introduction, but for the benefit of the invitees, I take great pleasure in saying few things about him. He has been conferred Padma Shri and Padma Vibhushan by Government of India, and he is currently the Principal Scientific Advisor to Government of India and Chairman, Scientific Advisory Committee to the Cabinet. Dr. Chidambaram.
Dr. R.K. Sinha, Dr. Shekhar Basu, Dr. R.B. Grover, Shri K.C. Purohit, Dr. P.K. Vijayan, Dr. A.K. Nayak, distinguished participants from abroad in India, ladies and gentlemen. I am grateful to Dr. P.K. Vijayan for inviting me to participate in the inaugural function of this important international Thorium Energy Conference 2015. India's long-standing interest in thorium, as Dr. R.K. Sinha said just now, is driven by the fact that India has vast reserves of thorium and modest reserves of uranium, and this vast reserves of thorium are in the rich deposits of monazite in the beach sands. There are other countries also which are showing increasing interest in thorium-based energy producing systems. A long time back there was interest, but that had died down. Only India has sustained its interest in thorium. And the increasing interest in thorium-based energy producing systems is visible from the excellent program of this conference, in which the speakers are from a large number of nuclear active countries. Of course, all the leading Indian experts working on the design of thorium-based reactors and fuel cycle are participating. Thorium, as we all know, while being abundant, is not a fissile material and has to be converted to fissile uranium-233 by breeding. I want to share with you my thoughts on what I consider the importance of thorium. The International Thorium Energy Committee was founded in 2012 at CERN, Geneva, under the leadership of Dr. Carlo Rubbia, to promote the use of thorium in nuclear power production. Dr. Rubbia, who is not here, many years back talked of an energy amplifier, and he has pioneered experiments in CERN to test this basic concept of a subcritical thorium-fueled reactor driven by a proton accelerator. The ADS concept that is called has also interested Indian scientists. The International Thorium Committee, and I quote, considers thorium as a viable alternative nuclear fuel to uranium. I personally consider a synergistic use of both uranium and thorium, as envisaged in India's three-stage nuclear program, to be the best approach, tweaking the third stage as appropriate to accommodate the accelerator-driven system. In the Thorium Energy Committee meeting 2013, the former Director General of IAEA, Dr. Hans Blix, I understand, emphasized the obvious advantages of thorium U-233 fuel reactors in the context of enhanced safety, easier management of radioactive waste, and nuclear non-proliferation. Dr. R.K. Sinha and Dr. Anil Kakotkar in India have been highlighting these same aspects for many years. In the context of waste management, I should mention that India has taken a global lead in the partitioning of high-level liquid waste with an industrial-scale actinide separation demonstration facility operational at Tarapur. Dr. P.K. Wattle tells me that with partitioning and transmutation of long-lived minor actinides in fast reactor accelerator-driven systems, the volume of vitrified waste to be disposed of in geological repositories can be brought down by a factor of 30 to 40. The thorium cycle minimizes the waste burden by itself, but partitioning of high-level liquid waste can be carried out here also to reduce it further. Of course, we should not forget that the thorium cycle is a long-term objective, and to get there, we must go through the fast breeder reactor stage, or alternately the ADE system, or in my opinion, both together, and build large inventories of uranium-233. The International Panel on Climate Change 2014 synthesis report of November last year says, and I quote, "Warming of the climate system is unequivocal. Decarbonization of the energy supply sector, limiting warming to 2 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial levels, requires the share of low-carbon electricity supply comprising renewable energy, nuclear, they mentioned nuclear, and carbon capture and storage to increase from the current share of approximately 30% to more than 80% by 2050 and 90% by 2100, which looks a little optimistic." Now, when you talk of climate change, we have always said that per capita greenhouse gas emission is the right parameter. Anything in a developing country like India, per capita, anything, if you multiply by the population of India, looks large. So the integrated greenhouse gas emissions or anything, it doesn't, that's not the one we should be looking at. But we should be really looking at per capita electricity, per capita electricity consumption or per capita carbon dioxide emission. And that is why, and for development we have to increase our electricity production, including the next 20 years, by burning coal. That is why, as Dr. Grover mentioned, India has been saying that what we will do, we will try to do, using renewables and nuclear, maybe advanced ultra-supercritical thermal plants, we will bring down the carbon emission intensity, the greenhouse gas emission intensity by 30-35% by 2030. While obviously it is absurd to expect a developing country to bring down its integrated carbon dioxide emissions. Earlier in 2008, in a report on the role of the IAEA to 2020 and beyond, by an independent commission appointed by the then Director General of IAEA, Dr. Mohammad El-Baradei, I was a member of this commission, stated that to satisfy energy demands and to mitigate the threat of climate change, 2 of the 21st century's greatest challenges, there are major opportunities for expansion of nuclear energy in those countries that choose to have it. Of course, some countries may have ideological objections to nuclear energy, but at least in those countries who feel it's important, this nuclear becomes a very important option. Lessons have been learned from the Fukushima accident by all the nuclear countries, including India, particularly on the continued functioning of the post-shutdown cooling systems after extreme natural events, and corrective actions taken as appropriate. But the above conclusion of the Commission, which I mentioned just now, the importance of the nuclear energy option, in my opinion, remains unchanged. Now, one can say that nuclear is now an accepted mitigation technology in the context of the climate change threat. But if it is to be a sustainable mitigation technology, you have to close the nuclear fuel cycle as part of our 3-stage program and bring in thorium-based self-sustaining reactor systems in the longer term. In a lecture in Bach on 11th March 2013, Mr. Yukiya Amano, Director General, International Atomic Energy Agency, and he talked on IAEA perspectives on the future of nuclear energy, stated, I quote, that India is at the forefront of technological development in the nuclear sector, not least in the area of fast reactors and related fuel cycles. Fast reactors and related fuel cycles will be important for the long-term sustainability of nuclear power, unquote. And he was referring very clearly to India's three-stage nuclear power program, which, as you all know, is based on the closed nuclear fuel cycle and thorium utilization. India had started experiments with thorium more than 5 decades back. I remember when I was doing experiments in the early 60s with the Cyrus reactors. I'm a crystallographer. We used to use the neutron beams to look at the structure of materials, particularly hydrogen-bonded crystals. They had already introduced what they call thorium-containing J-rods into the reactor, as they call them. In the 5 decades since then, a variety of thorium-related technologies have been established for all aspects of the thorium fuel cycle, some of them on a lab scale. I am very happy to hear from Dr. Shekhar Basu that DA is planning a global thorium center also. So you can say India has been a pioneer in thorium utilization. Reactor designers like Dr. R.K. Sinha and Dr. Anil Kakotkar are leading global experts in the thorium fuel cycle. Dr. Vijayan tells me that thoria bundles have been used in the initial course of PHWRs for flux flattening, and that test irradiations have been done with thoria-based MOX fuel, thorium with 6.75% plutonium. This is MOX fuel pins in PHWRs. The post-irradiation studies on fission products and uranium isotopic measurements were used to validate the reactor physics computer codes. Now, uranium-233 has been used in experiments in the Purnima reactor in Trombay. Fuel irradiation testing has been done in our fast breeder test reactor in Kalpakkam. They had a design pin with 233U, depleted uranium and plutonium MOX. And India thus already has a lot of experience with thorium. You will be hearing about all this in detail during the conference, and also about our engineering scale reprocessing facilities, about the uranium thorium separation facility, where thorium assemblies irradiated in research reactors have been reprocessed, and about the power reactor thorium reprocessing facility commissioned in January this year for reprocessing of thoria fuel bundles irradiated in PHWRs. You know, we have a reactor operational in Kalpakkam since I think 1996, called Kamini, Kalpakkam Mini Pool Reactor. It's a 30 kilowatt reactor based on uranium-233 fuel, it's a form of uranium aluminum alloy. And I understand it is the only operating reactor in the world, even though it's only a research reactor, with uranium-233 as fuel. This reactor, which functions as a neutron source with a flux of 10 to the power of 12 neutrons per centimeter per second at the core center, is located in the post-irradiation examination facility of the radiometallurgy laboratory of the Indira Gandhi Center for Atomic Research at Kalpakkam. It is used for neutron radiography of radioactive and non-radioactive objects and for neutron activation analysis. This reactor was jointly designed by BARC and IGCA. We are awaiting the commissioning shortly of our prototype fast breeder reactor, PFBR. You will hear more about this from Dr. Chellapandi day after tomorrow. Is he around here? I'm not sure if he's here. Probably he's coming later. And PFBR uses oxide fuel, but future fast breeder reactors will be, I think, metallic fuel to improve breeding ratios, and incorporation of thorium in their blankets will provide significant quantities of uranium-233, which could then be used in thorium-based reactors in the long term. In the interim period, as you will hear, I'm sure, from Dr. Sinha, we have the advanced heavy water reactor, which is a thorium fuel cycle demonstration reactor. HWR is a 300 megawatt vertical pressure tube type boiling water reactor, boiling light water cooled and heavy water moderated reactor, using 233 uranium thorium MOX and plutonium thorium MOX fuel. It incorporates passive safety systems and has a planned design life of 100 years. Many test facilities have been set up in DAE for AHWR design validation, including a critical facility. I'm sure you'll hear more about all this during the conference. I understand that uranium-233 generated in AHWR can also be used to set up experimental prototype systems for molten salt reactors to get experience much earlier, prior to large-scale deployment of thorium-based systems. Dr. Sinha and his colleagues think that molten salt breeder reactor, am I quoting you correctly, Sinha ji? I heard you telling me some time back that they think that the molten salt breeder reactor seems to be the most suitable candidate for the self-sustainable thorium reactor. Quoted you correctly? With breeding possible over a wide neutron spectrum. Molten salt reactors allow continuous recycling of spent fuel after cleaning it up and adding new fuel as appropriate. And I'm happy to note there will be several presentations on molten salt reactors of different designs with thorium in this conference. Of course, we have accelerator-driven systems. Accelerator-driven subcritical reactor system, ADS, for nuclear energy generation, as well as for transmutation of nuclear waste containing minor actinides using spallation neutrons, is also an important option for thorium utilization. This requires the development of high current, high energy proton accelerator. DAE is very much interested in that. Professor Carlo Rubbia is very much interested in that. And there is work going on in DAE laboratories in the high current, high energy accelerator area. The work is going on in target development and in related reactor physics. And I'm sure DAE will welcome increased international collaboration in this field. Now let me conclude by saying that I consider nuclear a near renewable. If the fuel cycle is closed with plutonium and fast breeder reactors, the same amount of uranium can give you 50 times more power, maybe more. If thorium is included in closing the fuel cycle, this will be increased to about 600 times, maybe more. I remember discussing this with Dr. Muhammad El-Baradei, as I said, the former DG of IAEA, some years back, and we agreed that with a closed nuclear fuel cycle and thorium utilization, one way or another, nuclear can be considered near renewable. I wish the conference all success. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your informative talk on the benefits of thorium energy and the status of thorium fuel cycle technology in India.